In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the start of the new NFL season. We're going to be talking some baseball and whatever other nonsense comes along. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is going on right now, so make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how are you doing?
I am doing very, very well, thank you. And with that little promo for the Rockford Ice Hogs, I do think we need to give them a little shout out for retiring Corey Crawford's number this past weekend.
Yeah, that was cool. Um, the Crow retirement. I always appreciate them acknowledging former Ice Hog standouts, and Corey Crawford was one. So uh,
Yep.
it was a cool gesture.
And I've gone to a lot of those Ice Hogs Wolves games in my childhood, and I can remember him for several of those games being in net, and he was, at the time kind of that guy who was just in the organization where, if they needed to call up a goaltender, he was there, but he was never really a regular. And then after they win a Stanley Cup and Antti Niemi goes, here's Corey Crawford, your regular guy for the next several years. Oh, and by the way, he was really good and he won 2 Stanley Cups. So really like that they acknowledged him, and the fact that Corey Crawford's been able to kind of be more public and talk kind of about how his last years as an NHL player panned out and kind of what his decision was to retire, and just hearing that things seem to be in good shape for him now because he did go through some things, especially in his career. So the fact that he seems to be doing good now really, really is good to see, and is one of the more underrated athletes in Chicago sports, considering what he did and how he contributed to multiple championships.
Yeah, and towards the end, when we talked about it a lot, about we hoped that he would hang it up because his long-term health was more important than
Right.
squeezing out another season or two. and and for a while there, it didn't look so good for his health. And so it is nice to see that things are resolving. And
Hmm.
because that's the thing you do worry about when there's head injury issues.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw Corey Crawford as a player in the playoffs. The playoffs are a whole different level. The intensity is very, very different. So, we saw him get in the middle of some action, and he took some heavy shots. He took some heavy slap shots too, in the playoffs. So, he was a warrior through so much of it. And, if it's playing all those playoff games that the Blackhawks did, you could definitely see how it really impacted all of them later in life.
Right. And we all know, or we should by that now know what head injuries, not even just concussions, but the subconcussive hits they do to the brain.
Hmm.
I mean, we still don't know the full effects, but we know enough to have it be scary. And um, in Chicago, we've had a few athletes that have done some tragic things because of CTE. And we have Jim McMahon who talks about how he suffers.
Yeah.
So it's sports are great and all, but the long-term health is what's most important. And you play this game because you love it, and at a certain point, then you play that game to make yourself and your family financially secure. And then you've got to be able to walk away when you've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish.
And it's easier said than done, even if you're taking a physical beating. Like you said, people truly love the game and they truly are passionate about what they do. And you get into kind of a routine. If you're a professional athlete and you're a, 10, 11, 12-year veteran, you've been having a similar routine for a very long time. So it's kind of that force of habit where you're like, I know my life is, this sort of conditioning, getting ready for a game, traveling, like it all just kind of comes second nature. And, to retire, you're changing your whole lifestyle. And it's definitely easier said than done for a lot of people.
Right. But it's nice to see that things are going well and to see him get honored. And it would have been awesome to be there. Have you been to the stadium in Rockford?
I haven't been inside, but I've been like around it. It's been a little while since I've been to Rockford, but I keep meaning to go. I
It's
want to go.
it is, you've been to a lot of Wolves games. It is a
Yes.
completely different atmosphere because that the Allstate Arena is just so cavernous.
Yeah.
And even when there's a good crowd there, it feels empty because it's way too big for an AHL stadium. And honestly, it's too big for a lot of NHL teams.
Yeah, and I mean, because the thing about the Allstate is that upper deck is really deep. Like it goes back like more than you kind of initially see it. You kind of look up, and if you're at a right angle, you look up at the upper deck and you're like, oh wow, that goes back quite a bit. And
Mhm.
it's one of those arenas. It was built in like what, the 80s, 70s, 80s.
Probably.
It's a couple of decades old and it really hasn't gone through much of a renovation. So it's there's a lot of things that need updating of it, but like you said before, they draw well, but when you're in a big stadium like that, the proportions of the crowd looks more different than it actually is, where Rockford, it's much more tight, so it looks like an AHL arena. It
Yeah.
truly does.
Yeah, I mean the capacity for the Ice Hogs arena is probably 60% of what the average attendance of or what a good attendance is at a Wolves game, but it's it's jam packed. I mean, it's a packed show, and when you go out into the concourse, there's not as many places to go. Like you could kind of get lost in the Allstate when you go out on the concourse, and you're like, where the hell is the Dippin' Dot station? Like where am I going? They
Where are
said
my
that
Dippin' Dots?
they said there's a dog adoption out there. Where's the dogs? And it just spread out. Is when you go on Rockford, it is there. It's not a big arena. You're just like there.
Yeah.
And you just feel it in the atmosphere. You're like I mean, even when you're back, you're like on the ice. It's a really cool experience. And um I think the last time I was there had tickets next to uh the penalty box, and that was hilarious because man, those guys get pissed when they go in there.
Oh
Every
yeah.
screaming at the ref every time they go by, banging their sticks. It's hilarious. And I think they were like $20 or something.
Oh yeah, I mean AHL is such a good value. I mean, it's just a step below the NHL, and those tickets are usually dirt cheap wherever you go. It's good it's fun hockey. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's absolutely, yeah. So go see if you are within a vicinity of an AHL arena. Definitely go. It's neat, and there's enough people where it's a lively atmosphere, but it's small enough where you can become a regular really easily.
Oh yeah, and you know what else is kind of funny too is um when I go to a lot of like the Wolves games, one of my favorite games to play is what random jerseys will we see today? Because whenever you go to an AHL game, you'll always catch those people that are just wearing the most random hockey jerseys. Like the times I've gone to a Wolves games, I'll see a Flyers jersey, I'll see an old Hartford Whalers jersey, I'll see like a 1970s era yellow and purple Kings jersey. That's always a lot of fun to play.
The one I want to see, and I'm hoping there's got to be at least one person out there with this jersey. It is from season 2, I believe, of The Office, and it is the Wilkes-Barre Scranton AHL team,
From
and
Dwight.
it's just the name on the back. It's from Dwight. Somebody has to have that jersey.
Oh, I bet. I mean, how could somebody not?
I mean, I've seen a bunch of the Griswold one.
Oh, yeah, that's everywhere. The Blackhawks Griswold, that's everywhere.
Yeah, or the Chiefs jersey from Slapshot.
Yep,
You
yep.
see those, but
I see a lot of those at Wolves games.
yeah, you do not see the from Dwight though.
No, you don't, which is kind of sad. You know what else I see a lot at Wolves games? A lot of people I see who are wearing Wolves jerseys, they're autographed jerseys. So like I've seen like a Steve Maltai autographed jersey somebody was wearing. I saw Wendell Young. I think I saw an Andre Pavlik from the year they won the Calder Cup in 2008. He was the goaltender that year. So like I've seen people wearing the jerseys that are autographed.
Yeah, and I've told the story in here before. I had my family at a Wolves or an Ice Hogs game, and it was they were doing like breast cancer awareness jerseys, so they were wearing pink jerseys, and they were doing a silent auction for the jersey. So I bid on a couple players, and I hear my name get announced on the speaker to come to the front.
With the meatball clanking the Kool-Aid, please come to the desk and get your jersey.
And so they're like, "You won." And I was like, "Oh, I won one of them. That's awesome." And I won it for very little over the minimum bid. And I was like, "Okay, so you pay and then they give you like a receipt." And I was like, "Oh, do you mail it to us?" They're like, "No, you go down to the locker room and they take it off and hand it to you." And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And we go down there, and I don't know, my kid is like 3, and like when she was little, she loved hockey. I think just the speed of the going by, and she goes down there, and all the players are down there, and they like fist bumped her, and she was so excited. And the guy takes off his jersey and hands it to us, and it's cold. It's the dead of winter, and Ice Rockford's a little over an hour away. We get in the car. I'm like, oh my God, this thing stinks. I mean, stinks.
Well, and freshly worn jersey.
Yeah, I mean, I was not ready for the level of stink of it. Um and so we're driving home with the windows cracked. Uh and um and then I get home and it's autographed. So I'm like Googling. I'm like, because I don't want to wash it because um I'm afraid that the autograph's gonna wash off. So I'm like Googling it, and finally somebody's like, put it in the freezer. Oh, that's a good idea. And I mean, it doesn't smell fresh, but it doesn't stink either.
Do you still have that jersey?
I do.
Who wore it? Was it anybody of note?
Um, it was Vili Polka.
I remember him.
Yeah, he was a defenseman,
Yeah, I remember him.
and he ended up playing for he had a cup of coffee with the Blackhawks, but then he went on and played with the Capitals, and I think he plays overseas now.
Yeah.
But he was like a Finnish dude. He was really
Yeah.
nice, but he played, I don't know, like 3 or 4 seasons with the Ice Hogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he was it was real nice. And on that team, you're just like, all right, who do I think is gonna be come up? And on that team, let's see, did anybody David Camp came up for a little bit. Matthew Highmore came up a little bit. Tanner Caro came up a little bit. Thomas Yurko.
Tanner Caro, I remember him.
Um, Jordan Tutu was on that team.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because wasn't he kind of up and down?
Hmm.
He was kind of that fringe NHL player type. Like he was a veteran, he's played in the NHL for a while, but he was like a fourth liner.
Yeah. Vinny Hinestroza, I think that might have been the high selling jersey.
Not surprising, local kid. Yeah, Vinny Henny.
Uh, Tyler Sakura, uh, Tommy Olchek. Um, Adam Clendenning, I think, went high too because I think there's a lot of hopes on him. He never
Yeah,
really panned
yeah.
out. Eric Gustafson was on that team.
Would Colin Daly have been on that team?
Yes, yes. But I believe the goalie that night was Jeff Glass.
Yeah, okay. I remember him.
Um, yeah, and Gustav Forsling, Victor Svedberg, Eric Gustafson,
Oh, Victor Svedberg.
and I think Hinestroza was the one that sold for quite a bit. And the thing is, Rockford's a little less well-to-do than Rosemont, so things don't go as high. So I think I got that jersey for like $250.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was tax deductible because money went to charity, so I got to deduct it from my taxes.
Nice.
Um, so that made it like 25% cheaper, and it was autographed, and it's still in there. It's a bright pink Ice Hogs jersey.
Send me a picture of that sometime.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's neat. So now I'm like, anytime they do the jerseys, I kind of want to go and you know, I want to say the most expensive, the Hinestrosa probably went for like 600, which still isn't terrible. Um, but uh, but it would be, yeah, it was. I look at the ones, I'm like, oh, they cool jerseys because I might want to go up there and try to bid on them again.
Yeah, you should.
And there's some players on there that you're hopeful for.
Well, I mean, especially now, you kind of built up your farm system, so
Yeah, I got to go get your Cole Gutman jersey.
oh yeah, that's a keeper.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't even matter who it is. It's just like a cool thing, and money went out. All the money went to charity. Um, so you just get it. And they've had some cool jerseys when you look back, um, and see some of those like uh themed jerseys that they auction off. There's some real cool ones. They had um like a Mardi Gras one that was cool. Um, yeah, they've had some cool ones.
Yeah, HL is cool special jerseys.
Yeah, and they all do a Star Wars night at some point or another.
Oh yeah, every single team.
Yeah, it's one of those money makers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Uh, but we're recording this on a Monday, and yesterday was the Super Bowl, the pretty much the end of the season, and you know it had a really awesome finish. I didn't think it was that good of a game until like the fourth quarter.
No, and I was watching with some friends in the first quarter and maybe even the first half and even the third quarter. It's like, okay, you're seeing some good defense here and it's a tight game, but it just a lot of punts. The best part, honestly, in the first half is you got to see some really epic kicks. You saw some 50+ yard kicks. I know it was indoors, but hey, I love a good long field goal. But man, it's just like, you had some sloppy turnovers. You had what seemed to be some nerves. And the 49ers had it. I really think that they blew it.
They totally blew it. I mean, here are the three things: the Christian McCaffrey fumble on that first drive.
Yep.
There's no way you're going to tell me they wouldn't have scored a touchdown in that
They
drive.
were slicing and dicing.
Yeah, they had him on their heels, and they were just picking up 6+ yards every carry, and they
Yep.
were marching. If he doesn't fumble, and honestly, that was so close to being knee to the ground.
Yeah.
But that was one. The punt. And at first, I was like screaming at the punt returner. I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" Until you saw the replay, and he that was actually a heads up play, um, to notice that it hit one of his own players.
He should have just fallen on it though. He
That's
kind
what
of
I was
tried to
about to
scoop
say.
it. You gotta
Yeah,
just fall on it.
it's always the safe move. Just grip it and fall. And but it was heads up that he went for it. Um, and then the overtime. I don't know why they didn't let the Chiefs take the ball
They didn't
first.
know the rules.
I know that's the the players not knowing the rules. So did they? Does the coach tell them? I mean, usually the coach is supposed to tell you what they want. If you win the toss, we want to defer, or which direction that you want to defend. I guess in Phoenix, or I mean in Las Vegas, it doesn't matter, but they usually tell you. So did the player make the choice?
Shanahan didn't know the rules.
Shanahan didn't either.
No.
Oh
That's
my
my
God.
understanding.
I know some of the players said they didn't. And what was wild is, like, in the opposite of when the Blackhawks won that first cup, uh, is Hardman catches that touchdown and he doesn't know the game is over. He's like looking around,
Right.
and he said he blacked out. He said he
Yeah.
just and
Everyone's going crazy, just like, what?
but
Now,
yeah,
now here's the thing. I was watching with a few buddies. When the 49ers kicked the field goal in overtime, I turned to one of my friends and I said, the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. I mean, everybody in the world knew that Pat Mahomes was winning that game there, right?
yep,
Everybody.
yep,
Everybody knew. And if you're the 49ers, I think you look back, what I thought was key in that game was not taking advantage of that Mahomes pick at the beginning of the second half.
yep. Missed extra point, not taking advantage of the interception, not going for it on fourth or at on the 4-yard line for the touchdown. Those are, I think if the third down play didn't get blown up, they probably would have gone for it.
Yes, I agree.
It just totally got blown up, and they're like, you know what? We got to get some points because there's no way we're stopping the Chiefs from scoring a field goal.
Right.
But part of me just wants to be petty, and at the end of the fourth quarter, when the Chiefs scored the field goal, and they tried to go for it on the third down, and it was an incomplete pass to Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes had a guy wide open in the middle of the field. And I just wanted to do the thing that everybody does to Justin Fields and just circle that wide open guy, basically standing, a yard from the end zone with nobody on the screen. Just be like, this play did not result in a touchdown.
Your interactions on social media would have been something. Oh man, you would have been showering in Kool-Aid and meatball sauce if you did that. Oh man. Well, it's funny too about that game because one of the big reasons I say the 49ers blew it was because despite the low score in the first half, and despite the fact that Mahomes and Brock Purdy had virtually the same, literally the same number of passing yards, 123, the 49ers controlled that game in the first half. The Chiefs were visibly frustrated. Every time the Chiefs got the slightest bit of momentum, the 49ers kind of took it away from them, but they couldn't take advantage. They were like the first downs and the time of possession was heavily in favor of the 49ers in the first half. If you could have gotten 17 in the first half, I think it's very likely you go on and win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl, and that's why you get an elite quarterback. Um, the Chiefs defense won that Super Bowl.
Well,
They,
yes, but
I
I do
mean,
think you got to
Mahomes.
credit Pat Mahomes.
Oh, I mean
Over
that
300 yards.
those last two drives, but I mean they went in overtime when their points ended in the word teen. So they didn't light it up, but those last two drives when it counted, yeah, he made it happen. But that Chiefs defense is what kept them in the game.
Oh,
Because
absolutely. The defense deserves more credit than it gets.
yeah, if the Chiefs defense doesn't play, if they play 90% of what they played, that game could have got out of hand. The way that the the 49ers were controlling that in the first half. I mean, if they score on that first drive, touchdown, and they take advantage of the Mahomes interception, what are they up by 24 in the first half?
Yeah, and you most likely win that game. And I mean, well, the interception was the beginning of the second half, but that was the
Okay,
first
you're right, you're
drive.
right, you're right, you're right. So it's but if you go up by that many points and with how well the 49ers run the ball is you're in trouble. I mean, because look at that first drive in overtime. Where'd that go? Like 9 minutes?
Yeah.
That's they're just gonna bury you by that's the thing with the 49 I mean the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl is the Falcons threw so much and any incomplete pass just stops the clock and it gives the 49ers that much time.
It was crazy the way they were doing that in that game. Referencing the Falcons back in 2016, it's like, all you need to do is keep the ball on the ground. Why are you passing to the sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers just, if they got up that big, they would have pinned their ears back and gone after Mahomes, and they would have just run the ball when they were on offense and just milked that clock.
Right, right. But you know what? When you give the great quarterback the opportunity, guess what? He's going to deliver. And he
And,
did.
and you know what? The 49ers took on defense, they took their foot off of the Chiefs' throats. And that one drive where they started back in the shadow of their own end zone and they they threw that first pass and got like 8 or 9 yards with Travis Kelce. At that point, I went, well, they're coming back because the 49ers, they just they took their foot off the throats. And if you're going to give up the easy 9 yards on a 2 yard in the air pass to Travis Kelce, you're not winning. You're not stopping them.
Well,
And that's
yeah, because
they just.
you were turning second and third down into second and third and manageable.
I mean, I know part of it was Greenlaw getting hurt, and that was awful.
Yeah.
Uh, Rupturing his Achilles by.
Complete fluke.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, circling this back to the Bears. I mean, if this tells me anything, is they're doing the right things by building that defense. They definitely, whatever happens, there has to be a legit edge rusher on the other side of Montez Sweat.
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Whatever happens is when they go into training camp, there better be a legit, like either a very, very high first round draft pick or a legit free agent. And I know people keep throwing around Danielle Hunter, but somebody of that caliber, there better be, either there better be one of those top three edge rushers or a legit free agent edge rusher on the other side of Montez Sweat because then, and assuming you bring Jalen Johnson back, your defense is stout. And then you need to focus on fixing that offense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and look what the Chiefs did at the end in big spots. They got pressure on Purdy, and that made a big difference. So that you need to maintain that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's hilarious when you watch that, you're like, all right, each of these quarterbacks, there's something they do when the play breaks down, and uh you know, Purdy, he makes accurate throws, but guys help him out. They get open. There's just always an open guy somewhere. Mahomes, like, he thrives under the pressure because he
Yep.
knows where all of his players are going to be, and he hits them. And I look at him like, Justin Fields, he's just so dynamic as an athlete. There's some of those plays where you're like, the Chiefs got pressure, but it wasn't contained pressure. They came up the middle, and he's not like, I'm not going to say Purdy's like a bad athlete, because he would smoke me in sprints or anything like that. But compared to Lamar Jackson or uh, Justin Fields, yeah, he's not a good athlete at quarterback. And you're like, man, Justin Fields would have run that for 20 yards and easy by just spinning out of that. And you're like, I don't know. I just it just makes you go, what if? What if? Why can't it be us? And if the NFL is scripted and teams from New York and Chicago are this bad regularly, they're scripting it wrong.
Yeah, no kidding. You don't want your biggest market team succeeding. The NFL would love it if the Bears were good.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest franchises and one of the biggest markets with one of the biggest fan bases. They would love it. I mean, when the Bears even won the division in 2018, that was, you had analysts on a national level saying this is good for football.
I mean, the Bears fans, even when the team is bad, travel super well.
Yeah.
And
you deserve better than this.
Yeah. We do deserve better. You've been a Bears fan for your whole life and have never seen them win a Super Bowl. And
No.
Taylor Swift jumps in 6 months ago and she's already got one.
I know it's not fair. It's not fair. It is truly, truly not fair. And just knowing the fact right now that we're the only team in the NFC North that hasn't won a playoff game over the past 10 years, the only team in the NFC North that hasn't been to an NFC championship game in the past 10 years. You haven't won a playoff game since 2010. Pat Mahomes has won more playoff games than you have since 1985. It's just, I'll be honest with you, is when I saw the Chiefs celebrating last night, I was kind of just depressed because I'm like, Bears are never going to be this. Maybe they luck into a Super Bowl once in my lifetime, but having a dynasty like this, they're never going to do that. Never going to come close. The Bears do victory laps when they win 7 or 8 games. All the Kansas City Chiefs about is winning titles.
And I just want to say is when the Chiefs fired whoever their last coach was the same exact day that the Bears fired a coach. And the Chiefs hired Andy Reid 4 days later. And it took several weeks for the Bears to hire Mark Trestman.
Yeah, because they had to do their mock press conferences.
But I mean, the thing I'm saying is I'm not jumping into this Fields versus Williams debate. It drives me crazy. I'm just saying is no matter what, so many fans on the pro Caleb Williams side are like, you gotta draft. He's elite. You draft your Pat Mahomes. There's not another Pat Mahomes. Like, Joe Burrow is a very good quarterback. And Joe Burrow has done some good things in his career. And he was one of those lock. Nobody is getting picked. He is the number one dude, no question. And he's not Patrick Mahomes. Like, there was Tom Brady. There's Patrick Mahomes.
The only 2 quarterbacks to win in overtime in the Super Bowl.
Those players don't just come along. So if you're putting expectations on Caleb Williams to be Patrick Mahomes, you're setting everybody up for failure.
Well, and I think if you want to make the argument that you want to go with Caleb Williams as your quarterback, okay, that's
And yeah,
fine.
that's
But
fair. Like if
yeah,
you've said that's, but to put the expectation of him
of
being
Patrick Mahomes,
yeah,
yeah, that's crazy.
that's that's just you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's not a knock on Caleb Williams. Is I mean, there when it's all said and done, is so many quarterbacks in this league are just going to pale in comparison.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Pat Mahomes might finish he's looking like he's going to finish his career as the greatest quarterback of all time.
which
Not
is
one of the greatest
which
quarterback of all
which
time.
is wild because the guy that we were like, this is the GOAT and nobody's ever going to touch this, just retired like not that long ago.
Right.
Like a year, was this is first year or second year of retired? First year, right?
First year.
Yeah. So he's only been retired one full season, and nobody's ever touching this. And they're like, oh, wait, Mahomes is probably going to beat this by the time he's 32. You know, it's just unreal.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's been to 4 Super Bowls. He's won 3. And as a starter, he's never not been at least to the NFC Championship.
Yep. Every single season he started, he's gone to the AFC Championship. And I mean, it was, and he's a good quarterback. And I went back to my evaluation of him, and I had a lot of good things. I was scared of him being a system quarterback, and I was like, he's either going to be great or he's going to be an absolute bust but he has the talent is there, and the gunslinger mentality, and so I had him much higher than what's his name from the Cleveland,
Oh, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. I had him much higher than that, and
Well, it also helps when you're drafted and you're playing with, I think, a top 3 NFL coach of all time in Andy Reid.
yeah, you went into, I mean, the several seasons before that, you look at the Chiefs, and they were like 10, 11, 12 wins every year. So you had Patrick Mahomes step into a team that was very, very good. You got to sit for a year behind a former number 1 overall pick, who resurrected his career. And you had Andy Reid might go down as the best coach ever.
He could.
Very well could.
He could. I mean, listen, I don't want to go too deep into this, but you look at the record of Bill Belichick without Tom Brady, right? Like, you've seen it.
Yeah.
And look at Andy Reid. He never won a Super Bowl, but he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl once, twice.
Once, but they were in the.
But they were always good.
They were always like one of the favorites in the NFC.
Honestly, he kind of reminds me of Shanahan. It's like he's got the team relevant every year, and he's been to a Super Bowl. He just hasn't quite gotten to the finish line. Now he's done it 3 times. I mean, so if Andy Reid is going to be the greatest coach of all time, and I think he's on a path to be one of those, it's a match made in heaven for Pat Mahomes. He's got the talent, and you got the best coaching available.
Yeah, and so Mahomes stepped into a wonderful situation. You couldn't have put him in a better situation.
No, you really couldn't have. You really couldn't have.
And Brady stepped into a great position too, because he stepped into behind a really good quarterback in Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah, Bledsoe is very good quarterback. Yeah,
and he got Wally pipped, and Bledsoe gets hurt. Brady comes in and then just never gives it up because he's really good, and he stepped into a Super Bowl team with one of the greatest coaches of all times. and got to sit behind a multi-time Pro Bowler. You're like, okay, that's a great position to step into. So part of it is, the Bears' problem is they never get somebody and put them in a good position.
No,
So
they don't.
so
It's lame duck losers.
my fear is if you go Caleb Williams and you know is is this coaching staff the one that's going to put him in a winning position? Is this, you put is he up is Eberflus up there with Andy Reid and Bill
No,
Belichick? No.
not even in the same galaxy.
I mean, even Mike Tomlin, like, no, not in that echelon. And, I'm hopeful of Shane Waldron, but, if he turns out to be really good, he's going to become a head coach. And he's so, I mean, we're we're not going to get a situation like they have in Detroit where their offensive coordinator gets offered a job back-to-back years and he just turns it down to keep staying the offensive coordinator. Is our offensive coordinator is going to be really good and move on, or he's going to stink and we're going to have to fire him after he's here too long. And
yeah.
So I'm scared to draft him because we haven't fixed our offensive line. We don't have enough weapons. We still need. I don't hate our running back room, but I would like a bell cow back. And so you need these things to put around your quarterback to put him in a position to win. And your team doesn't know how to win. Your team knows how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, no, they
So
this is my whole thing.
Are you expecting a rookie quarterback to come in here and change that attitude and whatever of the team?
No.
You have to have a team that already does that and put the quarterback that has that as well together. And so it's tough. That's why so many high quarterbacks just kind of fizzle out because it just the structure is not there. And the Chiefs were a good team. They traded way up to get him, and Mahomes fell. They came up. Brady fell to the sixth. That's why the Bengals got their guy, and then when he gets hurt, they go bad again, and they're able to get a top wide receiver to go with him. But they got their guy killed. So it's you've got to put your players in the right position, and I'm scared the structure and foundation is not there to put with a rookie quarterback.
I agree. If you would have gone out and hired a legit coach, I'd feel much different. I'd feel so much different. But I say this again. The team does not have a high enough bar. They don't. They don't want to be great. They might say they do. They might think they do. But they love to do that thing where it's not fine, but it's fine. Do we get the quarterback right? No. Did we win enough games? No. But everything's fine. We were doing it again.
And you on top of that, it's not just the organization is not just like that on the field. They're like that with everything. They had the opportunity for the city to build them a new stadium or renovate the stadium, and they're like, let's put a glass spaceship on top.
Yeah, and continue to be under capacity for a Super Bowl and not have the amenities for a Super Bowl.
Everybody from day one said, boy, that's dumb. And they're like, nope, this is fantastic. And now that stadium is so out of date, and there's it's stupid. And they had They're like, okay, we're going to build the state-of-the-art facility. And as much as I don't want the stadium in the suburbs, is if they do it right, I guess I don't care. And they're like, okay, we got this land. Okay, I still see some issues there, but they've got this land, and the renderings look absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
State-of-the-art facility. You've got a dome. It looks beautiful. And you're like, okay, they're doing something right. And then they botch it. And now, even though they had a several year head start, they're behind the White Sox in getting a new stadium. And have you heard about the financial situation?
With the White Sox or the
So
Bears?
both. So
Well, yeah.
the so when Manfred was talking about the White Sox and no new taxes, but this money, that's the same money the Bears have been counting on. Is so there's 2% of the hotel tax in the city, and that money's up for grabs. And I think the Bears thought it was theirs, but now the White Sox are going to be vying for that same exact pool of money. So now the Bears are probably going to lose out on that because the White Sox are probably going to strike first. And so you're going to fall behind in getting public funding from a 100-loss team that's plays second fiddle in baseball teams in this town. It's just incompetence at every level.
I know. And you see how some of these other teams are run. And teams like the Chiefs, they want to be great.
And
These teams want to be great.
and the thing is, the Bears, it doesn't matter who you put in because the playing field doesn't have nice grass on it. It's lined with banana peels from your ding dong owner. Like it's you just walk out there and you're like, oh, there this this whole this whole walkway is ice and banana peels. And you're like, hope I don't trip. Oh, there I go. That's what this is you have Kevin Warren, who ran the Big Ten, which is the SEC is better football programs. The Big Ten is the most powerful uh college sports conference in the world. The Big Ten is a huge powerhouse, and he helped bring them there. He was very important, and he goes to the Bears, and now he's a bungling idiot. Do you think he just forgot how to do things? No.
When
He,
you work for the Bears, you just become stupider.
yeah, you just get
It's a
you.
virus.
It's like when you are a good football team and you're playing a bad football team and you play down to your competition. You get dragged down into the quagmire that is the Bears organization, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope Kevin Warren can figure this whole thing out. And I really hope that, I mean, the funny thing is as down as I am about the Bears, one of the few pieces I'm not as concerned about, admittedly, right now, as of right now, and this might go against things I've said months ago, but I actually do think that there might be something in Ryan Poles. I think Ryan Poles, he's made his mistakes, as every young GM will do, but I do think that Ryan Poles is a good enough executive to at least build a roster. But the thing is you don't have your quarterback solved, and I don't think you're getting the right head coach right now by keeping Eberflus. So those are like the two most important things.
Yep.
Okay, great. You build a good defense. Awesome. Cool. You're going to win 7-8 games again. You're going to be mediocre. You might be good enough to get into a wild card one year, but you're not going to go anywhere. That is where I'm afraid this is going. It's just more of the Matt Nagy stuff. You're going to get by just enough to be somewhat relevant. It just mid-tier, 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 mid-tier. That's all this fucking city likes to do and aim for is mid-tier.
Yep. I was literally, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm like, you know what? I think the Bears, can compete for a playoff spot next year.
I do too.
And but I'm like, that's it. Like
That's it. Right.
is you hope best case scenario is that you're the Minnesota Vikings, where every year for a bunch of years you either win the division but then bow out early in the playoffs, or you're always on the graphic saying in the hunt.
Right.
And but you're never going to get there with Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer. And that's what the Bears are, and that's what I'm afraid we're going to get to. And I appreciate when people are like, you got to aim big, and that's why they want to go Caleb Williams. I just don't think the Bears have the infrastructure to be able to, let's say he is great. I don't know. But if he is, do the Bears have an organization to support great? Or are they just going to drag him down to mediocre?
That's what I'm worried about too. And again, this goes back to the coaching. I think Matt Eberflus is a very good defensive coordinator when he has the personnel. I do want to give Matt Eberflus some benefit of the doubt. Look, 2020, the team was losing on purpose. They were tanking. They stripped down that defensive front. They didn't have anybody. Their best player in the front seven in 2022 was Sanborn, and nobody ever heard of the guy. You didn't have a roster. And then this year, you got him some players, and you got him some pass rush. And suddenly you're like, okay, this defense is looking a little better. So I think that him as a coordinator isn't bad. He was clearly pretty good in Cincy, but just
Indy.
being Indy, sorry, not Cincy. But again, do I look how Matt LaFleur has just coached circles around this guy, and he looks completely befuddled when he's got to face something that's not Arthur Smith or the Panthers or Mike McDaniels. I mean, good for you for competing with the Lions. You competed with the Lions very, very well last year. But when you had to play Andy Reid, Matt LaFleur, and some of these other notable opponents, Sean Payton, they beat you.
Is if the Bears are going to hire, I either want them to hire a coach that's just so smart and is going to go there and scheme the shit out of you, like a Matt LaFleur.
Yes.
Or I want a coach. If we can't have that, I want somebody like the Lions have, where he is just going out there and he wants to fight. He
wants to
go out
kick
there.
your ass.
He wants to kick your ass. I want a coach that's just going to come out there and just blow you out of the water with his schemes and make you look stupid. Or
Yes.
somebody that's going to come to the podium, and when they ask about the opponent you're about to play, he uses a term like knocking your dick in the dirt.
Right.
That's
Right.
one of the two. And what we have is I gave the player a name Spider-Man.
Right, exactly. It's the high school rah-rah acronym crap, and if that stuff works, if you have a good system and a good team, okay, fine. But like, okay, hits principle. Okay, on the surface, it's not a bad. You get it, you understand what it means, but it's all the hits principle. We all come together and we all share our feelings and sing kumbaya. And then there's Matt Campbell saying, "We're gonna bite your kneecaps off. We're gonna kick your fucking ass."
Yeah.
Team is so goddamn soft.
I don't think you look at Dan Campbell and you're like, okay, he's not out coaching you, but he's out hustling you.
He's out hustling you. He's out motivating you.
He's
And
out meaning you.
He's out meaning you. This is football.
Yep. If you can't beat somebody on skill, you better beat them on physicality and ass kicking.
And I'm going to say that I've said this on the show before. I'll say it again. I don't want to go too far into the Caleb Williams, Justin Fields stuff, but let's say they do draft Caleb Williams. I just want to create this scenario, just something to think about. If Caleb Williams kind of brings that cocky asshole attitude, maybe that's what they need.
I hate putting the onus on a rookie quarterback to bring the attitude to this team. That it should be from the top down. It should be Ryan Poles setting the stage, going, all right, if this is who we're going to be, let me get guys that do that. Let me get guys.
Well, sure, it should be a whole team dynamic, but people will argue, oh, the Bears, they improved. They won 7 games compared to 3. You can't expect them. Look what the Texans just did.
Yeah,
they were worse than you.
They went and traded, and we all went, that's a dumb trade. I can't believe they made that trade. And what they wound up with? The offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year.
And they won a playoff game.
And that team is going to be a problem.
Yes, I'm glad they're not in the NFC.
They've got money. They've got their quarterback. They've got a foundational piece on defense.
They got a head coach.
They need some wide receiver help, but they got money, and this is a deep wide receiver draft. You're gonna get wide receivers, and this team doesn't need that much. The Bears need that.
Yeah, and remember how bad the Texans were the year before when we were tanking right with them?
Yep.
They were awful. They were irrelevant. Look where they went in 1 year.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it doesn't always work that way. You blah, blah, blah. You can't expect it. Why can't we set a high bar?
Yeah.
Why? Why can't we strive to be great? Why do we always have to play the why? We're the Chicago fucking Bears. We're not the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're the Bears. You should be shooting for the stars every single opportunity you get. And you know what? The tank year in 2022, it made sense. We understood it. We supported it. And I wasn't expecting to go from 0 to Super Bowl, but when you're selling yourself short, when you could have won 9 games, you lost 3 historic games. You could have won at least 9. And you made certain decisions that hindered that. Whether it was a coaching decision, whether it was a personnel decision, a roster decision, you could have made better decisions. And you could have been even better. Why can't we strive for that? Are we that used to mediocrity here?
And I do like Ryan Poles. And I know that there's been mistakes. But look when
there's going to be mistakes.
Look when their mistakes is when he was in a position where he was sort of bent over. He made a bad decision. Trading for Chase Claypool, I get why he did. He looked at that. He looked at that. He fell in, or he looked at those measurables. He saw the college production. He saw the size speed combination, and he saw the free agent market the next year, and he saw the other teams bidding, and he just like, you know what? Here you go. I'm outbidding everybody, and if you step back and you look at that from a position of strength where you're like, you know what? We got a DJ Moore. We would need another receiver, but we don't need one that bad. And we're going to look at this objectively, that a team that churns out wide receivers is dropping this guy. Why is that? You step back when he had a position of, you know what? We need an edge rusher, but we could just be stink again and ride that out and then be able to draft one. But he went in and he made a smart choice in the trade. He gave up a good amount, but if you look, who were the fans clamoring for when the trade deadline was coming and they wanted an edge rusher?
The other one. The one who got called out for not hustling on a team that went to the Super Bowl. They called him out, and because he didn't have a motor, the Bears looked at the other one, Montez Sweat, and said,
yeah, this is the dude, because that dude got paid and played better.
Yeah, that was a home run trade for Ryan Poles so far. And the fact that he made that trade and he got the Carolina trade, which is looking like a historic fleecing, those are the things that make you look at Ryan Poles and say, okay, okay, I can see him being on the right path to build a roster here. I
And
mean,
and,
it's
and
those are significant.
you know what? It could have not been a fleece had if they would have trusted their head coach and their staff and said, you know what, we want to get CJ Stroud. Had they drafted CJ Stroud with the first overall pick, this all plays out different for the Bears. And you're not talking about a fleecing because you don't have that number one pick.
Well, no, but I mean,
It
it
was,
was still a good trade. You still got
oh yeah,
DJ Moore and multiple firsts.
oh yeah. I'm not saying it would have been. It just to the level of the fleecing.
Oh yeah, this
It
is
can't,
this is historic
yeah,
fleecing.
the fleecing became because their owner is a bigger bungling idiot than the Bears bungling idiot
Yeah.
is he was like, no, we're taking the 5'10" quarterback, and um
And I'm the owner, so I say so.
yeah, and it did not work out. And it's not looking so hot for Bryce Young in his career because he did not look good.
No, he
And,
didn't.
and I get that was just a bad team, but
Yeah, but
he did not help out.
no, you watch the tape. It just there's a you'll see flashes from him, but then you'll see a lot of ugh.
Yeah, and he was the guy that was people were like, that's the number one pick, and just did not pan out. So the fact that he did not do well propelled that if the Bears to have this just historic fleecing. And you know, if they do trade this number one pick, they've I think Ryan Poles is smart. I don't think anything's leaking. I think they're letting information that they want out there out. You've heard uh, Kevin Warren talk about that they were pissed that something got leaked, and I think they clamped that down. And so when they released over the weekend that if somebody wants Justin Fields, it would take a premium pick, and if they want the number one pick, it's going to have to be a historic haul. That is not information that leaks. That is information you put out there to let the league know that, hey, you're not going to wait for us to just dump somebody, because I think people are waiting to see, like, oh, the Bears, they just going to dump Justin Fields and accept a third round pick. Mm-mm. Nope. If you want Justin Fields, you better pony up. And if you want that number one pick, you saw what we got for Bryce Young. Just imagine what we're getting for Caleb Williams.
Well, and I think that this is a scenario. The Bears have all the leverage with this pick. They can do whatever they want. And if there is that belief of teams that they want Caleb Williams and the Patriots or the Commanders really want him, guess what? They're going to really have to freaking pony up.
It's even if you're the Bears and you've already made, let's just hypothetically say they've made the decision, they're drafting Caleb Williams. It doesn't help you to let the league know that, even if that's your hand, you don't let them see it, because what you want is keep the leverage. You want to keep that leverage all the way until draft day, or unless somebody just comes along and blows you away. You want to keep that leverage. So let's just say you are taking that pick. If everybody knows you're taking the number one pick with Caleb Williams, then everybody's just going to resign themselves to the fact that they can't get it, and they're going to go to their plan Bs and their plan Cs right off the bat, and you lose any sort of leverage. If you keep the shroud of mystery and you make it seem like somebody could get that, at some point, what if they just offer you or offer you can't refuse? They're like, here's 3 first rounders, 3 second rounders, and a legit player. Like, okay, that's a lot to give up.
Yeah.
And and then, that came about because people still had the hope that they could get that number one pick and pry it from you.
Right,
So,
exactly.
so that's why you got to at least give the facade that that pick is for sale. And you've got to keep the leverage high for Justin Fields, because if you do decide to trade him, you don't want to, the hope is you could get a late first rounder for him. But at the latest, you want an early second rounder. And I think the hope is that, you're not going to get. I've seen some people trade Justin Fields for the number 3 overall pick to New England. That's not happening. But
Yeah, right.
but if you can sell them on giving the number 3 pick in the second round, and then they're like, okay, well, we've got our quarterback locked up. We can take Marvin Harrison Jr. with our number 3 pick and pair them together. Then you're like, okay, there we go. I got a second rounder back. So now I have a second rounder, and I did that because I kept leverage. It's no matter what you do, you've got to keep everybody guessing, and you've got to keep the leverage there for whatever it is you want to do and to get the best value.
And think about it too. Think of the leverage you have this year compared to last year, because last year pretty much everybody knew the Bears are going to trade that pick, right? Like there was really nobody thinking. I mean, some people might have speculated, you never know, but I feel like most people believed that the Bears were trading that pick, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is if you thought otherwise, you were just being contrarian.
Right.
The Bears were trading that pick flat out. They the fact that they had the conversations starting at the NFL Combine in mid-February makes you go, oh yeah, they let the league know that they were trading that pick.
Right.
So this year, the fact that nobody knows and nothing is leaking except information that they reached out to Schefter and said, hey, here's some info for you. Can you leak this out? There's no way that was accidental.
It's an envelope with sloppily written purple crayon on it.
Uh, um, how funny would it be if Poles pulled a Ryan Pace and then drafted a quarterback and didn't tell his coach? Uh, John Fox, we drafted Mitch Trubisky, didn't tell you. Oh, quarterback that we just paid a bunch of money to 10 minutes ago. We drafted a quarterback with our.
Oh, we brought him to the draft party.
Uh, they paid a quarterback a bunch of money, brought him to the draft party so they could watch him when they drafted a quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, it's one thing if you're there and they spend like a 4th rounder on a quarterback. Okay, it's a developmental guy. I'm not worried about this. But when they trade up to the number 2 spot to draft the guy,
I will never forget that night.
that is literally the most Bears thing the Bears could do.
Yep. It truly is.
The other bit of Bears news is we got 3 more Bears players in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That's right. Devin Hester finally made it, and Steve Mongo McMichael finally made it. And those are 2 guys we've been wanting to see get into the Hall for a while. Obviously, for someone like me, whose earliest memories of the Bears were Devin Hester returning kicks, and even though they lost the Super Bowl, that return he had at the beginning of the Super Bowl, and all the other times he returned kickoffs and punts. I mean, he was that type of NFL player where no matter where you were at, wherever the Bears were playing, whether it was Chicago or on the road, everybody was on the edge of their seat and taking out their cameras when the ball was heading to Devin Hester. Just he revolutionized that point where they moved the kickoff and now it's nowhere near as fun, which freaking sucks. But it was just awesome to see them get into the Hall of Fame. And obviously, Mongo, the battle with ALS, really, really emotional. Seeing his reaction with his wife Misty, and it breaks your heart to see what's become of Mongo with that horrific disease, but he still has that attitude of let's go, let's go. I want to be in Canton to accept my induction to the Hall of Fame. Like he's got to be feeling so happy that he finally made it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at least knowing he's in, I think he can die happy. But I think him actually uh, being there and getting the gold jacket, or at least living long enough to see, um, himself enshrined in August. That would be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just I watched a feature that Adam Schefter tweeted out and how he was diagnosed, I think it was like 2020, and just seeing how a few years, just how it changed him. It's just really heartbreaking to see, but it's heartwarming to see how much love and support he has from his family, his former teammates, and all the fans around in Chicago and around the country. Is that, and even the non-Bears fans. I mean, there are football fans, fighting fans, just people everywhere supporting Team Mongo. And the fact that he all has that, all that love and support really warms your heart to see.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know who will present him at the Hall. I mean, I'm hoping it's Dan Hampton.
I could see Richard Dent or Dan Hampton.
Um,
Because wasn't Richard Dent the one that called him?
I I think they both did. I think Hampton and Dent. I know Hampton's been there a lot,
Yeah.
but either one of those guys would be just fantastic. Two other Hall of Famers. Now we just got to get Gary Fenzik in there.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he deserves it. Um, and the Devin Hester, that was long overdue as well. It just the guy, I know, like, well, he was a kind of a failed cornerback and kind of a failed wide receiver. That's not why he's in. He's in because he changed the 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 game with his kick return abilities. And I heard an interview with him. He said that during pregame warmup, he would go over to the other punter and the opposing team's punter and kicker and go, "Hey, you gonna kick it to me today?" And and if they didn't respond, he's like, "I know I'm in their head and I'm gonna return one."
Yep.
And that attitude of, "I'm gonna do this. What are you gonna do to stop me?" That's incredible.
And he made it look so easy. The way he just glided down a field, it looked inhuman at times.
It was just unreal. And every time you look at one of his returns, you're like, that one's my favorite. And then you watch another one, you're like, no, 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 that one's my favorite. And then you watch another one, you're like, I mean, and what's wild is the guy who's the second best returner of all time, who's a guy that's super full of himself and loves to pat himself on the back. When he goes, "Yeah, Devin Hester's the greatest," you
Yeah,
go, "Okay." That guy, if that guy felt in his heart that he would totally take that credit. And it just, now he's in the Hall of Fame and he deserves it.
absolutely. And it makes me really happy to see him get that because, like I said, that was part of my childhood. And, I've seen Brian Urlacher get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and now we see Devin Hester. And, you wonder, is there a spot one day for Lance Briggs? Is there a spot for Peanut Tillman? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but um, when you see guys your childhood get inducted into the Hall of Fame like that, it's a good feeling because you can say I was there sitting on my couch, sitting in my college dorm room, wherever I was, sitting at a restaurant with my friends back in the day, watching that live, witnessing greatness.
Yeah, I mean, here are the players that got in that I remember. I remember Ditka getting in. I remember Walter Payton getting in. Singletary, Hampton, Dent, Urlacher. I remember all of those. I remember Covert, Ed Sprinkle, and it was wild. Ed Sprinkle,
Wrinkle.
he got in, and he was so my stepdad. He dated Ed Sprinkle's daughter,
No kidding.
and so he was friends with Ed. And he went to when Ed died a couple years ago. He went to the funeral, and the McCaskies was there. He was buried in a bear's coffin.
Yeah.
So, he was a bear. And then so I've
And
seen a bunch of bears get in, and it's makes you never stop being emotional about it.
yeah, and that's why I zero disrespect to him as a player, but that's why I feel a little differently about Julius Peppers. Like, I think he's going to be remembered as obviously a Panther, right? Like, he
Yeah,
spent far and away the most time there, even though he was a Bear for a couple of years. But
4 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
at least with him, he's like a secondarily a Bear. Like when
right,
Orlando Pace got in, you're like, oh, he played for the Bears, but he he was at the end of his career. He
right.
was a shell of himself, and um, you're like, okay, that's not the same guy. He's never gonna. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, trivia. You remember when Orlando Pace, the Hall of Famer, played for the Bears? You're like, no. And then you're like, oh my God, yeah, he played like that season.
Yeah,
Julius Peppers,
exactly.
that's like after Carolina, it's Chicago. That's what
Right,
he
right.
he played a chunk of his prime there.
He did. He
Um,
did.
so like I will lump him in. Like, when Orlando Pace got in, I wouldn't have been like, oh, another Bear got in. But Julius Peppers had uh, a legit time here.
He did. He did. And I don't want to undermine that. You know, Devin Hester was a Bear, truly a Bear, as was Mongo McMichael. Like they are Bears at heart. And
Yes.
they
It's
were
like
part of the peak of their success. They both got to a Super Bowl with the Bears, where Peppers spent a majority of the time and got to a Super Bowl with Carolina.
like I saw the Seahawks posted something. It was like congratulations to former Seahawks great Devin Hester on making the
Yeah.
pro. I was like, I don't even remember that he played for the Seahawks.
He for like a playoff game or two.
Like he played for the Seahawks. I had to Google it. I didn't
Yeah.
remember that. And I'm like, that dude is a bear. That dude is a bear.
I mean, he spent more time on the Falcons than the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's one of those ones that, at least Julius Peppers, you go around, you'll see a bunch of Julius Peppers jerseys still. You will not find a Bears Orlando Pace jersey.
No, 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 no. And I never want to give the illusion that I was comparing Julius Peppers to Orlando Pace.
Oh yeah, no,
Or
that's just a one that's on my mind. Like Alan Page from the Purple People Eaters. Like that dude played for the Bears. And Bobby Lane played for the Bears for a minute.
I mean, when Jared Allen played for the Bears, that wasn't even a full season.
Yeah, Jared Allen. If Jared Allen goes into the Hall of Fame, I will not go, oh, Bears got another dude in.
No,
Will not do it because that
no.
would be silly. Julius Peppers, I go, Bear got in because that dude played part of his prime, 4 years of his prime with the Bears.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. I
Um,
just don't have the same emotional connection that I do with Devin Hester.
oh yeah, I mean, if Julius Peppers was the only former Bear that got in this year, I'd have been like, okay, cool. But the fact that Hester and McMichael got in, that I just throw Julius Peppers in with my rah rah.
Right,
He gets
right.
he gets ladled in with my sauce.
Gulp, gulp, gulp.
But if Hester and McMichael wouldn't have got in this year, it'd have been me going, okay, cool. Julius Peppers, he all-time great. That dude deserved it. He did play for the Bears, cool, high five. But the fact that he's in with those other two, that there's me ladling. Uh, yeah, it's when Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers and Walter Payton go in, like those are Bears, and that's meaningful.
Well, and those are the defining Bears of all time. I mean, you listed the best Bear of all time and probably the second best in Dick Butkus, and Gale Sayers is a top 10. Like,
Yeah.
It's when you're talking about Peyton, Sayers, Hampton, Singletary, Ditka, Urlacher, like those are like the guys.
Yeah, and but when those guys that are like your guys get in, then you just beam. You just you beam because you're like, that's one of our dudes. Like nobody else can take that away. And Devin Hester might have played for other teams, but he is 100% known as a Bear.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And McMichael played other places, but that dude is known as a Bear. And my favorite McMichael story is when he found out, when Buddy Ryan told him that he accepted a job and he was leaving the Bears. Steve McMichael picked up a chair and threw it through a wall.
Love it. It's like, yep, that's Mongo.
And Wani was telling a story about McMichael going into training camp, towards late in his career. And he's like, we told the players, they asked for a day off. And that's when we practiced real hard in training camp. And we were in Platteville. There wasn't a lot going on in Platteville. They said, if you practice hard, I'll give you a day off. He's like, they did. We gave him a day off. And we said, tomorrow you can have off. You can go out tonight and have fun. He said, but you know what? Do not go to this VFW hall because the coaches are going to be there and we don't want to see you. And he said, Wani said, we roll up there with the coaching staff. We walk in. Who's the first person we see? Steve McMichael sitting at the bar where we told him not to be.
Yeah.
And he's like, back then, he's like at the VFW hall in Platteville. He's like, beer was probably 75 cents. And he's like, McMichael he didn't say nothing to us. He just drank his beer. He put $100 bill on the table and he said, those guys drink for free. And he got up and left.
Love it.
That was Wani in that same appearance on Parkins and Spiegel. He was at the airport and you could hear a crying kid in the background. And Parkins is like, he's like, the lounge here doesn't serve cocktails anymore. It's got to be weird being Wani at this late in the afternoon, not having a cocktail. And he goes, I wish they did have a cocktail. He's like, I got a 5-year-old next to me that could probably use one. He was on the radio talking about he wanted to buy a 5-year-old a cocktail.
Oh boy.
And that's why he's Wani.
Yep.
What else do you want to talk about here?
I think we need to have a serious conversation about the Bulls.
Yeah. So the trade deadline comes and goes. And they don't do anything.
Zilch.
Nothing.
And they came out and said that they think they're competitive and that what they're doing is good enough, that this is the bar they're setting. Mediocrity, mid-tier. They want to make the playoffs as a 7 seed or get in via the play-in tournament. With your franchise face out for the year, knowing that Milwaukee or Boston, if you even make it to that point of the first round of the playoffs, would destroy you, and that you go out there and it's win, lose, win, lose, win, lose with this team. And how many games have they won that are against like the Hornets and the Spurs and some other bum ass team? And then you play a real team. Oh, look, you lost. It's just they are telling you that mediocre is where they want to be. Flat out telling you.
Yeah, they just beat up on Memphis, and
who's has everybody injured.
Yeah, and they're just a bad team. And you're beating Atlanta tonight right now. I mean, who knows how it's going to finish.
They're not very good.
But they're worse than you are.
Yeah.
And you played Orlando and they just smoked you.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably going to be in the play-in tournament.
I guess my feeling is the only player on your roster that feels like they could be a building block is Kobe White.
Right. Who has had a tremendous turnaround this season, and it's been legitimately fun to watch.
And so I don't understand why you're not just building around him and gearing to yourself, because you don't have anything else.
Because we want to stay competitive.
It doesn't make sense to me. You're worried about losing DeMar DeRozan for nothing. So instead of trading him and getting something, now you painted yourself in a corner where I guess you could get something for a sign and trade, which won't be very much. Or you're going to have to re-sign him or lose him for nothing.
So you're going to keep around multiple old pieces that are declining.
Yeah. And you've got a really good defensive guard that could have got a ton of people or ton of teams that are playoff teams would have been like, yeah, we could use this dude. And you could have actually gotten something for him. And you don't. You hold tight. It just seems like we got here because the plan, like, I feel like you definitely had a plan and it didn't work out. So you went plan B and you just kept going plan B or plan C until you got here. And now you're like, well, I guess this has to be plan A because we don't have any more plans. And this just seems like a series of also rans. And I don't like it.
I want to ask this question too. When the Bulls were kind of at their peak with this regime, we never really believed they were going to be a championship team, right? Like, it seemed like they thought that the goal was to win a playoff series, right? Like, be like a top 5 seed and to win a playoff series. It feels like, looking back, we never preached enough about winning a championship, that the goal was to just be good enough to line Jerry's pockets, to sell out the United Center every night, and then get a few playoff games, some extra revenue.
And
truly,
and it's, they go into this season and they've made it a concerted effort. We're going to shoot a lot more volume of threes. And you go, in theory, that's great because that's what the good teams do. They shoot a lot of threes. In today's age, you shoot a lot of threes. But you're like, you didn't add enough 3-point shooters to have that make sense.
You got to be good at shooting threes to effectively shoot threes. And they ran back a team that last year made the play-in tournament, won 1 game, lost the second, and it was just an empty season, completely, utterly empty. And they ran it back with the same flaws that lost them meaningful games 2 years in a row. you got clobbered by the Bucks because you can't shoot the three and you can't contest them in the paint. All the Bucks would do is clog up the paint
And,
on you and make you shoot the three because they know you weren't going to hit them.
and you can't rebound.
And you can't rebound. Andre Drummond is the one nice thing to have when it comes to,
Yeah.
people wanted Andre Drummond. You didn't even sell Andre Drummond.
Yeah. And so but my point is you go in, you're like, okay, we don't have the team for this, but we're going to switch our strategy to shooting threes. And when your two best, the faces of your franchise are a guy who has a killer mid-range jumper and a guy that drives the basket. And you're like, we're going to be a 3-point shooting team. Like, okay, let's see how this goes. And then your drive to the basket max player, it doesn't buy into that. And so then it's you're fighting him to have this style. And then he goes down and you have everybody else go down. And suddenly you're like, you know what? We're going to make an about face. And now we're going to be a two big team. We're going to have Vooch and Drummond in there at the same time being two bigs. And like the coaching staff doesn't know what to do with this team. This team was cobbled together without no cohesion. It doesn't make sense. Individually, like this is a perfect example of this team is not as good as the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not a good mix. It's just, and again, you're looking at guys who are aging, like Vooch, and DeMar is getting older too. And, it's very easy to go back and say, oh, well, they kind of are where they are because of the Lonzo Ball injury. They were playing so good when Lonzo Ball. Yes, that injury was damaging, very damaging to this team. But also remember this too. That same season, that same half when Lonzo Ball played, DeMar DeRozan was playing the best professional basketball of his life. He wasn't playing like an all-star. He was playing like an MVP. And he's a very good all-star caliber basketball player, but he's not an MVP on the level of Steph Curry or LeBron or somebody like that. He's just not. And he was playing at that level that was going to come down, still be a very good player, but not an MVP caliber. So factor that in as well.
Yeah. But you just look at this team and you're like, okay, it's just a collection of at the time, Kobe White was a guy you were hopeful on, but he had a lot of things that he needed to work on. You have DeMar, you're like, oh, he's a very good player. But then you pair him with Zach LaVine, you're like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. You add Vooch in there, you're like, okay, none of this makes sense. And then the guys you draft, you're like, where are they going here? And I don't understand. And the one thing, getting Andre Drummond made sense because you couldn't rebound. And you're like, okay,
right.
Let's get a guy that is a great rebounder. And you do that, and okay, this suddenly makes sense. This move makes sense. But you don't give him very many minutes. I mean, he's playing more now out of necessity, but it just the coach in place, the players that you give him, just none of it meshes. And I don't know how you get out of this, because we've talked about over the years that the Bulls just keep finding themselves in some sort of purgatory.
Yes, and this is the very definition of it.
Because they're way too good to get a top draft pick. And they're way too bad to make noise in the playoffs.
Right. What this team is set up to do right now is you make the play-in tournament, maybe you win a game, and if you somehow pull off both, you'll play either Milwaukee or Boston in the first round, and you are not getting past that. If they think they're the Miami Heat, they have another thing coming, truly. And this is not a case of we couldn't find the right deals. People were interested in Drummond. People were interested in Alex Caruso. okay, yeah, the Zach LaVine injury took him off the board, but if you were to recoup something for an aging DeMar DeRozan or an Alex Caruso, who's probably going to get hurt at some point, as good, as likable as he doesn't stay on the floor all season. And you had him at good value you could have sold him at, and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't.
And I heard the possibility of 2 first-round draft picks for Alex Caruso. I mean, obviously they're going to be late first rounders, but still, like that's
Picks are picks.
picks
First
are
round picks
picks.
are first round picks. And if you gather enough, you could make it into a currency.
And if you draft well, it just takes one guy. And there's second round, it's weird. Like second round pick in the NFL, you're like, oh, that's a premium pick. Second round in the NBA, you're like,
Bleh.
hopefully this dude makes the roster.
Right. Right.
And every once in a while, you get a late first rounder or somebody in the second round, and they become a dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need is the more picks you have, the better odds you have of finding a dude.
And look at their drafting. Who's been AK's best draft pick? Is it Io?
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Williams has not turned out the way we hoped.
I'm it,
Dalen Terry is constantly on a bus between Dundee and the United Center.
and Patrick Williams, what was he, fourth?
Fourth overall.
And that was like a 3-team draft or
Yeah.
3-player draft, and you had the 4th pick. And I get you went with the highest upside, but it was the lowest floor. And he's one of those dudes that if he went somewhere else and became a dude, I wouldn't be, I mean, I'm not saying I would be a little tiny bit surprised, but not that surprised. Wouldn't be like jaw on the floor surprised.
Right.
We've seen worse players on the Bulls go somewhere else and become really good.
Or at least serviceable.
So, it's that was just picked sucked. Io has been good, and where he was picked, he's great for where he was picked.
Right. Yeah. You're not expecting a regular starter, all-star type caliber, but a good guy that could come off your bench and be useful and be kind of an energizer. You've gotten that from Io, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and it's you don't get very many second round picks that are just like, man, that's good. Chris Middleton is one. Gilbert Arenas was one. Paul Millsap, Kukoc, Marc Gasol, Draymond Green, Dennis Rodman, Manu Ginobili, and Nikola Jokic. And
Joker is just unreal. But it's the success rate of second round.
Oh, is bad.
Yeah, I compare it to the NFL. It's quite different.
Yeah, it is. It is brutal. So, the fact that you can get dudes. It's you got to have second round picks. And how many years have the Bulls traded all their second round picks? They've had like one pick. And I get you have limited roster space, but just having the ability to take dudes and churn through, and you got to have a development program, and they're not developing dudes.
No, they're not. It's just it's at the point where I'm just apathetic. Truly.
Yeah, and sure, they may win tonight, but they're playing Atlanta.
Atlanta's not very good.
Yeah, they're both gunning for the playing game.
Right.
One is 24 and 29. The other one's 25 and 28. So they're one game different. Woohoo!
Yeah.
There's nothing to say about the Blackhawks.
Connor Bedard's going to be back next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm hopeful, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
We'll see.
And
I don't want to rush him, but I also miss watching him play. That's all I got there.
Did you see Mitch Trubisky got released?
I did see that, yes.
The Bears should sign that Trubinsky guy.
Bring him back. Bring him home.
That guy was the number 2 overall pick. That's the kind of guy the Bears need.
The last guy to take us to the playoffs.
This Justin Fields guy never brought us to no playoffs. Trubinsky, he won the MVP.
Yeah, who needs the MVP when you can get the MVP?
And then there's baseball.
Spring training is right about to start.
By the time you hear from us next, pitchers and catchers will already be in camp working out. Yep.
And Cody Bellinger and other Boris clients could very likely still not be signed.
What do you think happens here? I mean, what's the long game, not just this year with the Boris clients, is he had a game and it worked for a while. And then the league pretty much went, all right, what's our game plan to deal with this guy? Because we can't just have him driving up contracts so high. We can't do it. It's not sustainable.
Signing deadline. I don't know.
The league now, they're like, okay, well, here we go. We wait him out. And he's still holding firm. I'm going to hold my guys. Where does this eventually go? Like, to players, does he start losing players because you're like, man, this guy's a little too greedy and he's not as successful as he once was with his tactics? Because he was kind of a one-trick pony with how he did things. And the last couple seasons, that trick hasn't been as good.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm still hopeful that Bellinger will be in a Cubs uniform.
Yeah, me too.
My buddy texted me today. He's like, "What about Bellinger to the Yankees?" I don't see that one.
Going into the offseason, that's honestly thought where I thought he was going to go, and then they made the Juan Soto trade, and I thought that kind of diminished the chances of that. And
you're not going to have an outfield that costs you $130 million next year.
Right.
And he's not going to play first because you got Rizzo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's he going to go? You've already got you got 3 starting outfielders and a DH and a first baseman. Like, where are you putting him? It just doesn't make sense.
If they didn't have Juan Soto, I think it would have been the perfect fit, but they got Juan Soto, so there you go.
Yeah, and as much as I love Bellinger, Juan Soto is an elite player.
Yeah, he's one of the very best.
And so you're running out of options because you're like, oh, well, he could just sign a 1-year deal with somebody. But you think the Pirates are going to give him a $20 million 1-year deal? No. Like Angels, maybe. And other than that, I think it's just waiting it out. It's a standoff between Boris and Jed.
Yeah.
And eventually somebody's going to have to cave. And I think it's where they're going to meet is there's going to be opt-outs, a bunch of opt-outs.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there's been a lot of speculation about that, and opt-outs have become a trendier thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. This team is not going to be nearly as competitive if they can't bring Bellinger in.
And maybe another bat and another pitcher.
Um, honestly, is what would be nice is they bring Bellinger in, and then you could get that Matt Chapman on a 1 year deal where it's like, you know what, it's late in the season. Let me just get into a camp and uh, and show that I'm a good player, and then hit the market next year and restart this.
Man, if they got Matt Chapman on a really short deal, I think that would be such an awesome get.
Yeah, I'm. He makes me nervous on a long term deal.
Right.
Is if he comes in on a very short deal, even if that bat isn't that good, the glove will be good, and he's not blocking in the path of anybody.
Exactly. I mean, and think of it too is if you have, say, 2 years of him, and this is all hypothetical, if you had 2 years of him, even with some decline, you can still pencil him in for solid power numbers and an elite glove over at third.
Yeah,
That's more than what you can guarantee right now because I like Christopher Morel, but his fielding at third, it's butcher. And Nick Madrigal, surprisingly good at fielding, but you don't want your third baseman, your regular third baseman, slugging under 400.
right. So, um, I I just they need Bellinger to anchor uh that batting order. They, and to fill some spots that they have in in the field is he gives you enough flexibility as a player, even if you lock him into a long term deal. He's not necessarily going to uh, you know, close the road for PCA because you're like, oh, PCA can play any of the three spots. Bellinger could hit the outfield. Bellinger could play any three spots in the outfield, but Bellinger can also be a DH or first baseman. And so you're like, oh, he's got enough flexibility where he's not hindering the path for PCA.
Right.
And so even if you bring him into a long-term deal, you're not that worried about it. And you need that bat in the lineup because if you don't have it, suddenly it doesn't look that hot.
Right. Exactly.
And the starting rotation, if everything goes perfectly, you're like, okay, we can be competitive with this rotation. Is it
That's
a
if.
is it a World Series rotation? No. Is it a playoff rotation? Yes. But man, you you need uh you need things to go right.
Yes, you do. You need Jordan Wicks to take that next step. You need Jamison Tyone to pitch like he did in the second half of last year. You need Justin Steele to resume where he was last year. You need Kyle Hendricks to give you good five starter stuff. And you need Shota Imanaga to be the guy you wanted him to be.
Yeah. I mean that's it's a lot of it's a lot of uh you know best case scenarios.
Right.
Um so it's a little scary. And I know we have a good manager now.
Mm-hmm.
But how good? How much is he going to get out of
Well, hopefully the most.
them?
We'll see.
Yeah. So I mean, right now it's Justin Steele's your one, Tyone's your two, Shota's your three, Hendricks, and then Wicks, Smiley, Wisniewski, Assad vying for the five spot.
Yeah. Well, it'll be stuff to figure out in camp, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's time to figure it out, and they do have the money to go to get like a Jordan Montgomery. Just will they?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, the nice thing is Montgomery isn't tied to any compensation for draft picks, so it fits a little more into what Jed wants. I don't want Blake Snell.
I don't think Blake Snell's gonna happen.
No, I mean, if you were like, oh, you know what, give me a pillow 1 year deal with Blake Snell, I'd take Blake Snell.
Sure.
But I I don't
From
want
multiple years, yeah.
don't want. Um, yeah, and you know, who's closing on this team?
It's probably Adbert.
Probably.
I don't want Hector Neris. He's more of a setup guy. His track record is much better as a 7th, 8th inning guy.
Yeah, so this is your starters. Jan Gomes catching. Probably have a platoon at first base.
Depends on Bellinger.
Right as of now, you platooning first base, and then Madrigal, Wisdom as your platooning third. Horner and Swanson up the middle. And Happ, Suzuki, and Talkman as your outfielders, and Morel as your DH.
Yeah.
Not striking fear in anybody's heart.
Nope.
I'm gonna bring up a topic here, and it came up because of the White Sox. There's one pitcher who has had some pretty like top end of the rotation stuff that's sitting out there that nobody's talking about. It's Trevor Bauer.
No.
No, not for the Cubs. I'm saying there's a team on the other side of town that doesn't really care about who they bring in. Do they consider, if Bauer's true to his word that he wants a 1 year incentive laden contract, would the White Sox be willing to do that?
I personally don't think Chris Getz wants that. I think Chris Getz wants to avoid a lot of the shenanigans that happened under Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams.
I mean, when you're Getz and you're like, this is a what have you done for me lately league, and you look at your starting rotation, and you're like, this sucks.
It's not good, no.
If you could add the talent of a Bauer,
I really don't think he wants to deal with that headache. Because listen, regardless of what you think of Trevor Bauer, that is going to be a major distraction.
Oh, absolutely.
It is going to carry a lot of baggage no matter what you think of him.
Absolutely. And I mean, here's the thing is, are there MLB teams that are pitching hungry going, man, I would love to have his stuff in the rotation? Absolutely. There's probably 20 plus teams that are like, if we could take that talent and put it in somebody that doesn't suck as a person, like, that's the guy we want. But he sucks as a person, and every team is going, yeah, I'm not taking that PR hit. It's not, that juice is not worth the squeeze. But all it takes is one team to go, we'll take a flyer on him. They take all of the heat. And if he just is a model citizen for the year and pitches great, that opens the door for other teams to take the risk on him, because some team has already taken all the heat. And the part of me is thinking that way, but the other part of me is Mike Clevenger is still sitting out there.
I was literally just gonna say, like, there's been absolutely no talks about a possible spot from he's involved in zero rumors I've seen.
Yeah, Mike Clevenger is just sitting out there, and you're like, because he's of the same turdy ilk, not his crimes aren't as bad, but the attitude is the same thing where it's like, I didn't do nothing, no big deal, get over it. Ugh. Um, you know, that kind of attitude. Nobody likes that. And people were mad as hell about the White Sox, keeping Clevenger. And to be fair, they signed him before all this happened, without knowing this happened. Sorry, they just didn't do their due diligence. They signed him without knowing. But then they kept him after they heard about it. And we're just going to keep him. We already paid money. We're getting our money's worth. And they took the heat. But I think people look at it and they're like, no, that dude didn't get his comeuppance. And whoever signs him, you're like, is he a terrible pitcher? No. But am I going to sign him and then have to take the rest of the heat he didn't get? I'm not doing it. And that's probably going to be the fate of Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, we'll see. I
would be mad as hell
I just don't see Chris Getz. Say what you will about Chris Getz, but I think he understood a lot of things that went wrong last year, and he's trying to correct that. Though not getting rid of Pedro Grifol is kind of a misstep, but
I don't think that was his choice.
I don't think so either. I really don't think so either. So I'll try to be fair to him on that. But
I think he was told that the money was spent and they can't unspend the money.
We're not going to go after Shohei Ohtani, that's for sure.
That dude, that piece of garbage, sat there in a press conference and told you he wasn't doing shit. And he's like, you're just going to have to deal with it.
I like David Eckstein instead.
I like the guy that made 250,000. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Sell the team. Sell the team. I feel bad because, like, it's not Chris Getz didn't hire himself. And Chris Getz has no control over the purse strings. And he's already been told in the press conference where he was hired that he can't go after guys that will make an impact. So what is he going to do? Like, that guy he's going to just get beat up by everybody, the media and the fandom. He's just going to get beat up. And you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? It's like, not take the job. I can't get better when we stink. Like, we don't have any money to spend, and I have to trade away players. And here's the garbage I have in the farm system. That guy is handed a bad hand, and hopefully he just takes the paycheck and stockpiles it away for a day when he just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen podcast, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. How we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, Bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down, I wanna